continuing and ongoing effort, so I think this is great.
And I think you allude to one thing that's really important is the column that is blank,
Right.
which is responsibilities and that's, you know, honestly, I think where our next discussion is gonna go is, if these are priorities, how are they gonna happen and who's gonna be doing what? And that's also where, you know, we're gonna hear from staff, about what's, reasonable expectations. Carmen?
So from doing like a little bit of research and digging around, one of the things that I found, especially on the affordable housing piece, task force to review best zoning practices, replicate Homing's pocket neighborhood, you know, and getting some affordable housing built for people. One of the things I found out that I think is terribly, terribly interesting is that after the building of the Corey Street apartments, the low-income apartments through that Greenmet, the whole rest of the plot was zoned conservation. After, so we have this beautiful plot of land across from, you know, the Riding Center, and then after the low-income apartments go in,
It was at the same time.
oh,
It was a deal with, if you're gonna do this, then this is gonna be conservation
So-
at the same time.
right, so,
And we think that there may well be a way to get out of that.
well, there's, right, so, but that was that kind of as a concession to, was that as a,
It was a
concession?
Concession
Maybe
to
it is.
people that are.
Right, that was a concession to the residents. Right, okay,
And to
so I just wanted
the
to.
density, I think, I mean.
And I just, well, I wanted to be clear that that's what it is, because if that's what it is, if it's a concession to the residents, that is a horrible look. It's not a good look, and it's not a good look for a lot of reasons.
You just
But
said
it's
the
not
word
a good-
density, was that actually a mathematical equation? Like if you're gonna put this much density on this half of the plot, you gotta average it out?
But it's not even half, it's not even,
No, no.
it's not half at all, it's the majority of that plot is zone conservation.
Right, but was that done for that reason, so that the average density was lower?
That's kind of my understanding, looking through the process at the time, was basically, you're gonna put large scale housing or an apartment building onto this land, therefore the offset is you need X amount of open space and space.
And we were getting into details about one particular thing, and
Mhm.
I'd like to step back to the overview, because that is on the radar. That land is on the radar in terms of, I mean, we've been talking about that.
But you're making a point.
Well, yeah, and the reason why it's, I think that I've been, you know, we've been talking to some other community members for probably the last 6 months about it, and I think that is why it's on the radar, because I brought that up, you know, to John Hempling several months ago. So all I'm saying is, this is something that I would be interested in, so when it, like, on the blank part,
Yeah.
then I got that. I
Good.
wanna start working on that.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, it's right, well, you're gonna get some shit from the man across the street, but hey,
Which one?
oh, you know, Mr. Sweater.
Oh, I have, do you know how many martinis I've made for that man? We have a rapport.
Okay, then, if you have that,
Right.
you're in,
We
because that's
are-
about the only thing
This
that
is
will.
not being recorded, is
It
it?
is.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how, if any of it has to do with what's underneath that. So, just,
I mean, maybe, but we can find that out. But I don't think so. What I think is what Josue said. Which is NIMBYism, NIMBY,
Yeah.
not in my backyard.
Mary, you can jump in.
Yeah, so, right now, we're just doing overview, that's what I
Yep.
think you're saying.
So the next,
And so what I'd like to suggest is that when we start getting into the detail, that we take time to go through each of these goals. Because I recall other times when we would get deeply involved, we'd start at the top, get deeply involved, get halfway through. So whether that's saying we're gonna allot 10 minutes to each goal and then move on, I don't know, but I think it's important that we at least do a sweep through everything. So that, you know, some things are gonna be more important, and we're gonna wanna spend more time on them, and maybe we'll come back to them, but I'd like to get through the whole thing.
I'm interested in keeping it moving too. So the incentivizing stormwater solutions, working with Florentina currently all over, and making contact with Central State, because they have that wastewater, well, they have a water resources management program. So that could be another, you can put my name there too. At least to start the conversation, start making some moves towards getting something accomplished there.
Gavin? I mean, any kind of general thoughts, questions at this point?
No, I'm listening, this is an area I'm particularly just getting caught up with where y'all are at. This is super helpful.
Okay. All right, well, let's take the 5 minutes before we take a break to, I guess, dig into some of these. I mean, there's a part of me that also thinks that it is good to hit each one, but I want to make sure that we're also kind of thinking about the priority piece as well, you know, like how deeply we need to dig into some of this.
Yeah, I just don't want to get a priority piece left to the end and then we didn't cover it.
Yeah,
That's what-
yeah, definitely, for sure. Well, you know, we talked a little bit about affordability. I think it's listed first because it's been a priority, I think, for council overall for a while now. Are there any other particular thoughts around the action items associated with that goal?
I mean, it's hard to know how deep to start digging in, because the second one, identifying strategic zoning improvements, well, I think everyone knows there's been a group of citizens meeting for over a half a year, coming on to a year, actually. I've been involved in that. I think Carmen may have been, I think you've been in and out of it. There's gonna be a meeting on Saturday. So there's work that's been being done, and at least some of those people, I think, would make sense to be on the task force. And then engaging stakeholder plan, expand housing options. I want to make a proposal about that in terms of developing a community-wide housing plan that would involve the village government and Home Inc. and any other housing related groups or potentially support systems that might, so I don't know how.
No, I think that's good because it brings up another point, which is, I think, part of what's going to drive our prioritization is what groups are existing now that are doing work that can provide capacity, right? And you know, certainly we've had our commissions that have helped prioritize some things, but I think it's important, you know, mentioning that zoning group that's, you know.
Yeah, so I
that-
put the zoning group in there, I put inclusive resilient Yellow Springs.
I don't know how you can put that zoning group in there, because it's ad hoc and it's not a council group in any way, and it's not been vetted in any way by planning commission, and there are no planning commission members on it.
Hey, I
And to
put
me,
that as
that-
a resource, rather than responsible. It is a resource.
I just think the conversation changes when you bring staff in, because if you say, for example, we're gonna go to a zero lot line and this and this and this in residence A, that implies that the infrastructure will support it, because once you put it in the zoning code, you're saying we have the infrastructure to support it, and if you don't, you will be spending that money to support that change in the zoning code. You can't work this end before this end.
Well, you jumped several steps away from what I am suggesting. I mean, what I am suggesting as an option is to create a task force to look at our zoning code, to make suggestions on the kind of things that have been being discussed. And that task force, we would establish it, council would make some overall arching recommendations about what we are looking for. The task force would come up with recommendations. They'd have to be vetted by planning commission and staff, but, I mean, this is a multi-step process, and at some point, we presumably would get, when we would get a professional to come in to do a rewrite can be discussed, but
I think we may be jumping, over a couple steps.
Well, maybe we are,
I
yeah.
proposed a process for how to get this done. It includes having the committee reviewing the visioning process, or last visioning document was done over 10 years ago. It was a joint project with the village and the township. That needs to be updated. We said, traditionally, when you have the comprehensive land use plan, you follow up with zoning updates, so a full zoning review. We're not outdated because ours is fairly recent. It was adopted in 2012, 2013. So we're not outdated from that perspective, but times have changed, and a zoning update has its process. It involves planning commission, it involves the committees, it involves consultants. We're talking about a 2 year process.
Sure.
So that needs to be formalized.
Yeah, and I think that's a great thing to take a break on, which is that, in my mind, anything we're gonna prioritize has to have an action plan, right? That process, whatever you wanna call it. And a lot of that's sort of incumbent on, some of the things we wanna see happen, and collaborating to make sure that those can happen. So when we come back to affordability, that's where my head's at in particular, and thinking about an action plan that we can develop around that. But the zoning one is another one that I think makes a lot of sense. So let's go ahead and take a break. My understanding is that Lacey's in council chambers to take pictures of council members.
That's right.
Oh, the dancer, okay, I know the dancer.
So,
Yeah.
so we need two, definitely we need your pictures to put up on our website, and other council members are interested in having a refresh, and I would encourage you to do a group picture.
Yes, group pictures are good. So, maybe, let's go see if we can do the group picture now, and then we're gonna come back at 10:30.
12 minutes, 5 minutes for a joke.
Right, we had to make it 2 hours, it just felt like.
Yes.
Oh, 10:30.
Yeah. Wow.
In your pictures? Okay.
I'm not getting my picture taken.
Why not?
How many tragedies have occurred since the last picture taking?
2,
3.
3?
Yeah, I'm sticking with the old picture.
Okay, I don't think the picture, right?
I'm sticking with the old.
When we talk about I think it's important for me, for my team, particularly my team, that we acknowledge the shit show where 2 council members and staff spent a year and a half getting property annexed into the village, working on a concept that touched all development housing study recommendations. And it just got trashed. A wealthy person is buying it and it's gonna put it out conservation. So you're standing here and talk about, it's a tragedy that Corey Street Apartments, property adjacent to the well, put in conservation for PD's 100 neighbors. The same thing happened in you. Not you, you the person who's saying.
Are you saying that when you're talking about housing, you might need to serve?
No, I'm gonna bring it up because my team is still reeling from it. We don't wanna take on any housing project. I sure do, I don't wanna take on housing. Like, why should I put energy into trying to get a project to come to fruition if it's gonna get tanked? I'd rather leave it with green men. I don't have to deal with it. And that's what my team is too, because we busted our butt getting these folks annexed to the village. For a year and a half. Over's walking out with a nice bag of cash. And our leader, Dave Chappelle, makes us all look like clowns.
Oh, yeah, it's on the record. I look like a clown.
So, this week I had a meeting with a business person from the YSDC who told me, go in all go all in on Dave. Stop trying to sell the CPE. Why don't you work on building a studio here in Yellow Springs so that Dave could do his recording? There's other filmmakers in town that will probably use it. Go all in on Dave.
Why is DC?
Wise Development Corporation.
You mind sharing? I'm curious.
Corey.
And she's president
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's a thought, but
no, we can't put all of our eggs in one basket.
no.
Yeah, we can't.
I mean, it's. So,
I know they're pretty good at it.
so we should tell, is Lacey responsible, tell her that we had a break at 10:18? So, 10:15, so we should cut out, yeah, the 10 minute, it was a 10 minute.
Oh, actually, it was official, we went on a break.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, so it needs to be scrubbed. Although it's, we
But
didn't say.
I mean, you know,